Hey everybody, hope you are well. My name is Eddie G. I am a documentary photographer, street photographer, filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, shebang, shabuya, that's all besides the point. Today, I want to talk about some street photography tips that will possibly help you. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So usually when you're out on the streets photographing, whether you're seasoned or new to just the craft of street photography, I believe personally the most important thing is exposure, making sure you have a well exposed image. Whether you're shooting digital or film, you want to make sure you have a good exposure. For me personally, when I'm using film, I'm usually shooting with my Leica M6 or any other film camera. I do use the internal light meter, and I like to just make sure everything's overexposed. And if you've just learned anything about film online these past few years, you know it's important to overexpose your photos. But that's not really what I want to teach you. It is more so using a light meter and a gray card, specifically with black and white film. I do not do this method with color film, and I do not carry around a card the size of my face. I usually have this just cut into like a nice little credit card size square that I can carry around in my wallet in my pocket, but I just currently misplaced it and I have no clue where it's at. But I usually just get cutouts from this. This is a 18% gray card that I bought off of Amazon, and what I'll usually do is just set my light meter. This is a Sekonic L478DR to the desired ISO value that I want. So the only thing I'm really controlling is ISO and my shutter speed. So I usually like to shoot at 800 at 500 of a second. And so I'll do that, set my things there, and it will tell me the aperture exposure. So what I'll do is just hold my gray card in the specific light I'm shooting. So if I'm in shadow or if I'm in sunlight, I'll just hold the light in there, so it's just the card in there, so it's getting lit well, and then measure for it. And obviously I'm just in a darker space right now, so it's saying you want to expose for f.5, which is not an aperture for me. So obviously I'll just drop that down to something that's more suitable at 30th, and I have an aperture of f2. And yeah, it's pretty consistent. And essentially I'll just set my camera to those settings and just trust it. Always trust the gray card. I've never shot with my gray card and light meter setup and had a bad exposure. The only time I do have bad exposures is when I'm not using it. And you learn eventually just like the settings you're in and just like how to expose. But this never fails. And I believe what this is doing from when you're metering it is that it's just taking a middle gray point, and honestly it's overexposing your image for you about a stop and a half. And so you can kind of just bring that back down in post when you're, kind of looking over your film negatives. And again, I've just had solid negatives across the board. So when it comes to exposing digital, I like, because I'm so used to shooting with film, to really use the camera fully manually. So with Fuji cameras specifically, I like to set the ISO at 640 because that's where you get the most dynamic range out of the camera. And then I'll adjust my shutter speed anywhere between 250, 500, or 1,000th of a second, or go higher if just the light is that bright outside. And then just ride from f11 to 5.6. And that pretty much gets me through most situations when shooting digital. If the light is changing drastically, I'll just set my ISO to auto and then just ride my shutter speed and aperture just where I want. And again, I like to shoot at 500th or 250th of a second because that just gives me that nice steady motion blur to where, at 500th a second, if somebody's waving their hand, you get that nice, just crisp shot. You don't get that blurriness. So yeah, that's kind of just how I expose my digital and film. So my next tip is focal length. Pick one and stick with it. Whether you're using a zoom lens that's a 24-70 or a 16-35, just set the lens at that one focal length and just practice and learn just what it is, what it means to use that focal length, and just what it communicates and just its disadvantages and advantages, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what you can get in the frame and what, you know, you can't get in the frame, and just how you have to adjust to it. I know a lot of us just like to carry around a lot of lenses. This is a 50 millimeter and a 28. People like to shoot with 85, 50 millimeter, all over the place. Again, just stick with the same focal length and just learn what it is to use that focal length, and you'll get better because you're just minimizing the amount of just distractions and things that just take away from your photography just at any given moment, and you're giving yourself that opportunity to push yourself and learn. So my next 3 tips really kind of blend into each other, and the third one is photograph different things. If you're used to just photographing people, photograph buildings, or vice versa. This gives your brain and your mind an opportunity to just like kind of refresh yourself during your session. If you're feeling a little stagnant, stale, or you're just feeling like burnt out on shooting a certain subject matter, take the time to just photograph something else. And it doesn't even have to be out on the street doing street photography, but if you are doing street photography, photograph things like inanimate objects, photograph, I don't know, trees, anything out there, animals, shadows, light. Just go for other things, because trying to focus on one subject at a time really quickly, I don't know, if you're consistently out there shooting, just burn you out really fast. And speaking of burnout, if you're burnt out, which is the 4th tip, lean into that burnout. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to just stop, completely stop, and just like not do photography. If you want to just pick up something else, or just rest and lay in bed and watch TV shows, or just consume, I feel like that's perfectly fine and okay to do, because it will just let your brain rest and give you that motivation. If you're on Instagram, don't unfollow people if you don't, feel like doing that, but you can mute people. You can mute their stories, you can mute their posts and whatnot, and what that will do is just give you time to just like relax and stop inputting so much that's influencing you and making you feel like you're not taking like the best photos that you can, because you probably are. It's just you're consuming so much, you're kind of just dumbing down your own self-confidence. But follow other people, follow and find new people that just have a little different style of street photography than you do or you like, or just follow other photographers in general. I follow a lot of fashion photographers, or just landscape photographers, or photographers that just kind of take pictures of random things, random buildings and sites, things around them, of their just daily life, because that just gives me inspiration into how I can implement that into my street photography, and just inspiration to just go out and photograph other things in general. That was tip number 5. I kind of just blended them both together. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. That is all I have to share with you guys today. I hope you all are doing well. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you go ahead and just show that like button some love, because that really helps this video, and consider subscribing, because I definitely have more content coming. Thank you all for watching. Peace. I don't know why I did that.